This is Ready, Set, Reiki, a podcast about Reiki, the universal energy life force, from the curious beginner to the seasoned master teacher, welcoming all systems, all lineages, and all levels. Reiki is a journey and not a destination, and on this Ready, Set, Reiki journey, I refer to myself as a guide rather than a host, as I too am traveling, supporting others, and learning on this Reiki journey as well. And with that said, I am your guide, Tracy C. Wright. And today, what a wonderful treat that I have. I am being joined on this journey with Dean McMurray. Now, he is the military medium. Now, he is an internationally acclaimed psychic medium, healer, and ordained minister. His story is so powerful and so authentic. It is unlike any other psychic medium out there. And this is why people from all across the globe are drawn to him for readings and personal guidance. So, welcome, Dean, to Ready, Set, Reiki.
Thank you so much, Tracy. Thanks for having me on your program.
Wonderful. So let's begin this journey. I can't wait to hear your story. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, man. Where do I begin? Well, I was born and raised in we were talking earlier before we came live about kind of our backgrounds. And I grew up in a little border town up on the Canadian border in northern Minnesota. And, right after high school, I went off to serve in the military like so many young men and women do across this country. And, I went on to serve about 15 years with the United States Army. And then after I got back from Afghanistan, I got out of the active Army component, and then I came over to the Army National Guard. And I kind of continued my military journey, but I did it in a full-time capacity, so it was a little bit different, and brought me to where I am now, the great state of North Dakota. And I ended up retiring after 24 years, and I'm really grateful, not only for the opportunity to serve the country, but because this journey that I was on with the military allowed me the opportunity to meet my now wife. And it was in one of those duty positions in a little town in central North Dakota that, these one horse towns, as they call it, where I met her. So now we've been in eastern North Dakota for, goodness, probably about 15 years now. And that's kind of my military background. And, really, I moved all over the state before I got married and before I even met my wife, in different postings, if you will. And really, because it was part of my military background is the reason that I share it, and where it made up really the first half of my military life, like so many military families or military individuals at the time. And not that I really realized it, but I identified so much as the soldier. If you would have asked me who I was then, my first words out of my mouth before I said a dad or a husband would have been, I'm a soldier. And then come all the other labels, right? And that's how I identified as self. But as I stepped into my spiritual awareness and my abilities, it was like all these labels came crashing down. And of course, I was retiring. So you put away those labels. Well, you're not a full-time soldier anymore, Dean. Who are you? And I was like, for the first time in my life, Tracy, I was like, I don't know. Like, oh, I'm a husband. I know I'm a dad, dog dad of 2 kids, great kids. But so the thing is, but I was like, but okay, but who am I? And one of the things that I always went back to, and which I'll get to here in a minute about my spiritual awakening, but I was like, but I'm a medium as well. And I was like, how about a student of the universe? How about something that's not so specific that, and I was like, isn't it interesting that we have to identify by labels? But what I did is I was like, there has to be something more to this. I got to be more. And it was almost like something, spirit was like going, but you're more than labels. But ego said, I need labels so I can self-identify. And so when spirit led me to a place where I was comfortable to let go of who I thought I was, and I got closer to the true essence of who I am. And I was like, wow, I am more than that. Like, we are this eternal being. We are so much more. Yes, all the earthly things, the 3D things that we see, hear, and do, and owning those labels, that's fine. But I was like, there's so much more to us. And I was like, boy, I've been limiting myself. Why do I have to be in a box? And I'm, so I'm like, well, what do I want to say that I am today? So it was kind of interesting. There's been several journeys that I've been on in this spiritual development journey, I'll call it, because I don't even want to call it a spiritual awakening, because after you have one experience, then another door opens. And then you continually go deeper in this beautiful rabbit hole of awakenings. And then it's like, just when you think it couldn't get any cooler, then you like have this awareness, or, hey, there's another door. Where does that go? And it's like, whoa, like, I understand that there's so much more depth than what I thought. And again, saying what I thought again goes to ego, right? So and we tend to muck up our own I call it the hamster brain mentality, or the monkey mind, monkey mind instead of the intuitive heart, or the aspect of getting back connected to spirit. But going back in my spiritual development, it was right at the end of my military term. I had just come back from a last deployment. I had 3 years to go before I retired, and our last of our 2 children were born, and my son Wyatt. And that was 13 years ago, and it'll be 14 years coming up in November. But when I got back from that deployment, that's when, Tracy, what I call all holy hell started breaking loose in our home at the time, because clocks and pictures were literally coming up all. And I was like, what is going on? And, I know you shared that your husband is military as well. And so in that world, for people that have never set foot in that world, it's very black and white for a lot of us. And so if something cannot be figured out in regulations or orders or whatever, usually if you couldn't drive it, shoot it, eat it, whatever, it didn't exist. And so, we needed things that were very tangible. And I know there's people out there that serve in the military that are very walk in the gray area, we'll call it, very in touch with their intuitive selves. However, for myself anyways, because that's what I can speak to, is that I was in this land of going, what the heck? Like, what is going on? And other than my wife, I was like, I felt so alone, because I was like, I didn't want to tell anybody at work, because you didn't want to be quote unquote that guy. And the other, thinking, oh my God, Dean needs to go to the VA to, get admitted or something like that. And because there was a stigma. And so I was, I made the choice not to say anything, but except for my wife. And I was like, she had a local psychic in the area that her and a bunch of girlfriends were getting readings and different things. And so she came over to give. I didn't really know what she was going to do. And quite honestly, in my mind, I was conjuring a scene out of, I think it's Cinderella, right? The fairy godmother with the bib bobbity boo and I thought they make it all gone. That it was my ignorance of not knowing what, how energy works and how different people do what they do. And she came over and started connecting with my grandfather. She gave me evidential information later that I realized later, because she started connecting to my grandpa. And the first thing out of my mouth, I go looking at her like, she had another set of eyeballs on the top of her head going, why the hell's grandpa here? Where was he after Bosnia? Where was he after Korea? Where was he? I'm more like, where were you? Kind of give him the knife hand type deal. And she looks at me and she goes, Dean, I don't know, but I can tell you he's here now. Mm. And again, going back to that ego mind or the monkey mind, was it just shut down because it focused. I was so focused, Tracy, on like, why the hell is grandpa here? Why the couldn't move on? And here she's giving me all these nuggets of talking about working with veterans and like all this great stuff about, hey, welcome to the party, and type deal. And I was just like, what the heck? Why is she talking with, and I was not even open to receiving this message, even though, grandpa was a big part of my life, my mom's dad. And so she left, and she didn't clear any energy. She just gave me the message. And so, nothing changed, but quite honestly, a couple weeks went by and things got more active, we'll call it, more poltergeist energy, whatever you want to call it. And we know that poltergeist is really just a German word saying noisy ghost, right? And they were noisy. They were like, damn it, Dean, you need to wake up and step into your abilities. And literally, I was washing dishes, Tracy, one night. And around midnight, of all things, I was washing baby bottles. I don't know why the heck I was up at midnight, but everybody was in bed. My daughter, who was about 5 at the time, my wife, and then, of course, my newborn son. And I just had a knowing that my grandmother was standing directly behind me. Every sense of my body was tingling. If I had any hair, it would be standing on end. But you turn around and there's nothing there, but you could just, you knew, right? And I didn't realize I was having the phenomena of the claircognizance, the clear knowing, and things. And I literally started talking out loud to myself. I said, how the hell do I know it's grandma? And I started answering myself going, I don't know, but she's not here to hurt us. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm answering myself. We're going to, I'm going to have to call and get admitted or something. But quite honestly, I didn't feel alarmed. It was different. I didn't know how to explain it. And so I went to bed that night thinking, you know what? I'm just making stuff up. I'm too tired. I probably saw something, heard something. And again, the monkey mind trying to make sense out of things that you can't make sense out of because it defies logic. And went to bed that night knowing that my grandmother was there without a doubt. And so I'm laying in bed with my eyes closed, but very much awake, right before you go to sleep. And my mind starts wandering, going, well, hey, how you doing, grandma? Miss you, love you. And then my ego, it's like I have another part of self there and going, you know what? This is just, Dean, it's all BS. This is just BS. If grandma was really here, she would prove it. There would be no no question. And as soon as those words left my own head, Tracy, it was boom. The temperature in the room dropped like I walked outside in the Midwest in the middle of February. And I know that you're from, the north parts. It gets cold. And so when we're talking about, 20 below or whatever, colder sometimes, it was like, holy cow, if I had the lights on, I know I could have saw my breath. And then, but ego says, it's peak power. The wife has a window open. Maybe it's a fan, right? Whatever, trying to make sense because otherwise it might be too freaky. And so then my ego kind of went back and goes, if she was really here, we can finish this. If she was really here, she would touch me. And grandma wasn't there to disappoint that evening because as soon as those words left my mind once again, I still remember it was like yesterday, Tracy. It was a gentle but firm pressure from the top of my head. all the way to my feet. And it literally, I was pushed into the bed like somebody was laying on top of me. And I could hear the springs compress and everything in the bed come up around me. And I'm like, holy leap, like, and it was like the 6-year-old little boy in me came out, and I was like, okay, I'm officially freaked the hell out. And so I was like, how do you shut it off? Where's the off button? And so I was like, hey, grandma, love you. You need to leave. You're freaking the hell out of me. Love you. See you soon. And as soon as I said that, again, just like a snap of the fingers, everything was gone. The weight was gone. The room returned to regular temperature. The only difference at that point now is I'm sitting up in bed, completely out of breath, covered in sweat. And I'm trying to self-analyze myself, thinking, okay, what was that? What did I just experience? And am I having a latent PTSD experience? Like, oh my God, what's going on? And my wife, who I've never known in the many years that we've been married, she has never slept deep. And that night she was like sawing logs, like, she's never slept in her life. And I'm like, you need to wake up. And when she finally did, she said, what's going on? And I was like, there is somebody here. And she's thinking somebody's breaking in. And I was, in my mind, I'm thinking, no, that would be too easy. Like, you can respond to a physical threat. You can rationalize, in a sense, maybe, in a sense of, okay, I understand that. But I said, no, there's a spirit here. And she looks at me like, how the hell do you know that? And I said, I know, right? You need to get to that voodoo chick over here, because that's what I was referring to the psychic as. And she doesn't do voodoo, by the way, but that was my joking term for her. And at the time she was like, Dean, it's like 2:00 in the morning. You need to go back to sleep. And I was like, well, fat chance of that. And of course I stay up the rest of the evening watching TV. And so really for me, Tracy, that was I'll call it my awakening moment. And I jokingly refer to it as the come to Jesus moment, because spirit, the universe knew that it's like, oh man, this guy's hard-headed. We need to send in grandma. We need to beat him, not beat him, but, smack him over the head with the 2x4, because some of us are very hard-headed. Sure. And because I needed something so visceral, Tracy, that no matter what I experienced, or what doesn't matter even to this day, you could have the most, and people, there are some out there, I've met some that are so like, what you experienced is this, it's not spirit. And it's like, you know what, you can have your opinion and I totally respect that, but I know what I experienced. And maybe I can't explain everything, and words fail me a lot of the times to summarize the magnitude of that. But I know, like, to my core, what I experienced. And so there will be, never can be somebody to try to poo-poo away and explain away, right? Sure. And saying, you were having this experience, and be like, no, dude, this is something completely different. And so I went on a journey of trying, from that moment on, of going, okay, why me? Why now? I'm 3 years out from retirement. We just had a baby not long ago. We got a 5-year-old. Like, what? WTF, right? And so, but trying to figure out, like, dad's, I mean, I'm not at a place in my life where I'm comfortable having a nervous breakdown. Dad still needs to go work.
Yeah.
And so I kind of did some soul searching, and I went back to that psychic. And I was like, I need to figure something out, because things are starting to escalate now. And I explained to her, like, I started getting messages, and there was all kinds of stuff. And one door was opening to another. Sure. And she goes, Dean, you're a medium. And I said, you are full of shit. I literally, and she looked at me and she laughed and she goes, you know what? I probably am, but it still doesn't mean that you're any less a medium. And I
Right.
said, I don't want to be a medium. Take it back. And not even, harder. And she was like, it doesn't work like that. I
Right.
didn't give you anything. You've always had it.
Yeah.
However, you're reawakening and remembering the ability you have.
Right.
And I was okay, like, okay, this wasn't in the disclaimer, right?
Sure, sure.
And
So with that, this leads into perfect to the next question is,
yeah.
finding out who you were or are, what inspired you to be the military medium?
Ooh, man, so as I shared, I didn't want to be the medium. I didn't want to be, and first off, I didn't go by the military medium. I went by, when I started stepping into doing work, it was psychic medium Dean McMurray. And then my wife, my loving, intuitive wife, sometimes so frustrating, living with a super intuitive family is, she said many years ago, this is when I first started, she goes, you should call yourself the military medium. So you have a military husband, you'll get it. And I said it in the most loving way that I could. I said, that sounds kind of stupid and kind of hokey. Now, that was totally like a military minded thing because
Sure.
I was coming at it from a military aspect of military. Man, that sounds so corny.
Hmm.
And I was like, psychic, whatever. And she was like, whatever. And you'll figure it out. Right. Fast forward a number of years, and I had been doing this full time. I was like sitting there and I was like, I need to rebrand myself.
Hmm.
And, writing stuff on a board. And I was like, the military media. And I just hung my head and I was like, I came upstairs. I was like, you're not going to believe this. And she saw what I had written down. She said, uh-huh. Can you say it? Yeah, you were right. And she was like, oh, you should have listened to me, so it was kind of one of those things of listening to your wife, but more, she was listening to her intuition. She was
Sure.
getting those hits long before I was.
Right.
But it was really more, it's really more of a moniker, right? So
Hmm.
taking my many years of military service and marrying it with this new direction in life of being a medium. And it was just meshing the two. And I know that there's so many more, if you want to call them military mediums. There's so
Mm.
many intuitives,
Sure.
healers, readers that are currently serving or have served or whatever, or family. And I salute all of them. I salute everybody. But the thing is knowing that there's so many more of them out there. But
Right.
yeah, so then when I embraced the military medium, I guess that label, again, we get to labels. It was interesting, Tracy, because I did the holistic expo circuit and all that when I very first started. As soon as I retired and got away from the military, I did that really hard for about a year or two, and
Mm.
went to as many as I could in the Midwest and different things. And they, and they were good, but when I did them as the military medium, completely, totally changed
Mm.
the energy. And
Absolutely.
more, here's the interesting thing, completely changed the demographic of
Mm.
who started approaching me. And more
Yeah.
men goes, military medium, huh? I kind of like that name.
Yeah.
And then out comes the stories of my dad served in the military. I
Yeah.
served in the military.
Yeah.
Or I'm currently served, or hey, like a good friend of mine that does paranormal investigation.
Yeah.
Hey, I was Air Force veteran, worked for the FBI, so all of these things, and people started
Sure.
coming out. And then I was like, going, what the hell? What button did I push? And I wasn't seeing the avenue that when I finally connected, I was like, huh, if I would have done that sooner, you know, um, who knows? I don't know. But the thing
Well,
that I
yeah.
know is that it completely, in a good way, it changed the energy of reaching more people
Sure.
and open more doorways to help more people, because that has always been since day one, because I didn't know when I first connected with that psychic, she goes, why do you want to be a medium? And I said, I told you I don't want to be a medium. She goes, no, why do you want to be a medium? Think about it. And I was like, so we did a meditation, and it was to help others, right, at a bigger level.
Sure.
But it came to me was my vision statement, so to speak, was to help others heal one connection at a time. And so since the early days, I call it, is that has always been when I need to keep the main thing, when sometimes your ego needs to be pulled back and put in check. And when you get in the middle of life, and it's like, sometimes you need to get back to basics. And that mantra for me of, hey, Dean, are you helping others heal one connection at a time? It's like, thanks for that reminder, Spirit, and to keep that as a baseline message or vision statement of, hey, that's why I started this work. So if I'm not doing that in some way, then what am I doing? And so it's kind of a self-check. And so but it's really opened some amazing doors. I've had some amazing opportunities, whether it's nothing has gone to TV or anything yet, but there was some opportunities for film. But when
coming soon, right?
Coming soon, right. You're putting the positive intention. And I always say this too, Tracy, is every time I have said, I haven't experienced that, and then it comes up in spirit. So I'm almost kind of like, well, I haven't experienced it, so, but the thing is that it has, I had an experience that I still remember today that really touched me deeply. Was a fellow veteran. His wife, he was dying. He was in a local hospice unit, and his wife was looking for mediums, and she was skeptical, very traditional religion, and which was great. And she reached, and something kept on guiding her towards me. And he was a career Army man, everything. And the whole family, I still remember this. I went into the hospice unit here in our city, and the entire family was there. Like no pressure, right? And I was like, but I was really nervous, but I also felt so compelled, like, wow, just what the honor of just being called to ask to go. And where she wanted to reassure her husband that when it's his time to go, that his mom and other people that have crossed will be there. And I did the reading, and you could tell he couldn't speak, but he, had some his eyes and everything. It could tell the story, right? The eyes are the windows of the soul, as they say.
Sure.
And you could tell in the eyes that he was touched deeply and emotionally. And it's something that still, when I think about connecting to our servicemen and women, and when I think about connecting to the families and everything, is I remember that. And she, interesting enough, she ended up becoming just such a dear friend after her husband passed and everything. She extremely intuitive lady herself, and it's just such a treat to be around her and her family, and to be able to give that. But that's something, and I just don't, and I also want to give clarity, is just because I embrace the title, the military medium, and kind of use that as my title, is I just don't focus on military. It's like we were just chatting about, I was just up in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and, did some readings up there, and just for, civilians that, step forward, if you want to say, to just everybody, not everyday Joes, but I think everybody is special. But a lot of people get confused saying, so do you just do readings for military vets or families? And it's like, no, I give readings to everybody. But of course, military and their families will always hold this. And first responders and everybody else will always
Of
hold that.
course. So as you went on those circuits and you were,
Yeah.
from the Midwest
Yes.
and you're navigating and you're, giving some examples here,
Yeah.
what are some common misconceptions about mediums?
Whoosh. There's so many, I think, right? So some of us just don't wear a medium shirt. This perhaps is an extra large. No, joking aside is, there's a misconception of number one, where, like mediums are communicating with things that are evil or dark, right? And so what I would say to that is that's a huge misconception, but I would say with every energy worker, with every reader, not just mediums, but psychics and other channelers or whatever, go with your intuition. What does your intuition say? It doesn't mean that if it feels off, it doesn't mean that they have bodies. I always joke and say they have bodies in the basement, but means that your energy doesn't align. So,
Sure.
but I would say is that's typically for most readers, that is a misconception because, excuse me, for myself, I have gone through not only a lot of training, but I set my intentions not only with my guardian angels, but my guides, to only communicate with those that are divine in nature. And it is a big, I set a lot of boundaries with spirit because in the beginning I was bombarded just with willy-nilly everybody. When you kind of hang that mediumship shingle out and
Sure.
turn your light on in heaven, it's like, oh, everybody. It's just, think of the Midwest during the summer, and you turn on a porch light, what happens? All the bugs, right? So
Right.
everything that's attracted to light, low vibration, high vibration, everything's attracted. And the higher you raise your vibration, the better you got to be at, okay, yes, no. It's kind of, what could we use the definition of spiritual tender, or is it Tinder?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Tinder.
One of the apps. So, anyways, I'm messing it up already. But swipe left and right to figure out what is high vibration, what you are a match to, and what is divine in nature and what's not. So, number one, and number two, another misconception is, I think would be is that mediums, a lot of people say they're a scam. They're, they're not communicating with anything. They all do cold readings or hot readings, or they research. Here's the deal is you got to do your research. And unfortunately, there are those, and we would be naive to say that nobody does that because we know that there are people. But those of us that take the time to are very ethical in their work and have those standards of doing what we do and come from a heart-centered place, don't have time for that BS. And quite honestly, I might live in a city, but it's really not that big. And why would somebody, my dad would always say, don't pee where you sleep, or don't, take it. Don't go to the bathroom where you sleep. Right.
Sure.
But the thing is that the same, word of advice is word gets out fairly quick. And unless you only do work online, which I do events, as I shared, I was just in Winnipeg, you will be taken care of quite quickly by, people out there because, so what I would share is, not everybody is a scam. Not everybody is ethical. Do your research, do your homework, ask for word of mouth. What are people saying? Follow them. Are they doing live stuff? Do you feel energetically connected? So.
Very good.
Yeah.
So when it is time for you to seek guidance, what qualities do you look for in a psychic medium?
Good question. I'm thinking on that one. Well, first and foremost, somebody that I energetically connect with. I'll give you a really quick example. Years ago, I felt so incredibly motivated to get into medical mediumship. If ever anybody's ever heard that, about being able to scan the body. And I was like, wow, that sounds so fascinating. I always loved medicine and different things, and taking an EMT course and stuff. So I always had an interest in the medical field, or, medicine. And I was like, wouldn't that be cool to combine the two, if that's something, and just, or to explore, to play, and to see where it goes. And so I started looking for a mentor, quite honestly. And I was like, and I actually put that out. I was like, okay, universe, if the student is ready, they always say, when the student is ready, the teacher will, damn it, I am ready, right? The ego, that was clearly ego, but the universe did send me. I went to, as I was sharing those expos, and wouldn't you know it, I would be either right next to a medical medium, or these holistic nurses that deal with all that stuff. And I was like, oh my God, I would get so excited, and I would read, and I would talk to them, and it was so fascinating. But I was like, and I was so bummed, because I was like, they're really cool, and I love talking. I didn't feel the energetic connection of taking a course from them.
Yeah.
And I was like, and it doesn't mean that they're bad.
Sure.
They were great, but I was like, no. And it was something that you just know when you know. That's that claircognizance of going, I know that I'll find it. And all of a sudden, one day for me, I was sitting watching TV, and all of a sudden Spirit showed up and goes, get on social media, ask for 4 volunteers. And I was like, what's this for? Like one of my kids, like, you got a thing due tomorrow, and it's like, no, get on social media, ask for 4 volunteers. And I was like, okay, so what is this for? Like, and it's like, so you're going to do the medical mediumship thing. And I was like, well, wow. Okay. So when are we doing this? You're doing this like here this week. You need to do it. And it's like, so I did it. And within a matter of minutes, of course, anything free, everybody. And at the time I would have people come into my home. Right. And so I had to put up big boundaries, because there was like 10 people or 20, and I was like, ooh, man, I got too many. And
yeah.
So anyways, long story short, Spirit was like, your teacher, you need to get downstairs right now. You're going to channel your teacher. And I was like, you say what? And it's like, your teachers are showing up in spirit.
Nice.
And in my ego mind, I was thinking somebody has to show up physically. You got to take a course in this. You got to crack a book. And it's like, no, you're going to channel your teachers. And I was like, teachers, like several? And it was like, yes, 2 teachers. And I was like, one is a surgeon, one is a deceased surgeon. And another was an angel. Right. And it was like, okay, so I was like, so what's going on? And it was like, okay, so the surgeon will allow you to see, and the surgeon will tell you or take you to the area of injury or interest or whatever. And the surgeon, I don't know, I didn't get a lot of background information I should have, because he's very cranky. I don't know if he did, but the thing
he was in retirement. You pulled him out.
I know, right? This when they pulled me back in, and he was like, you need to he like very direct. You need to go down and get yourself an anatomy book, because you do not know what you're looking at.
Yes.
And so I'll show you what you need to look at. And then the other, as I shared, is once the area is identified, then there's this angel that comes in. And it was really kind of interesting, because it's not a familiar archangel, but I could tell it was very divine. It's different.
Sure.
And that would come in and allow the body to reset and heal what it needs to heal naturally. Right. And and it was so fascinating, because then I would see it, and then I would, go in the book and get one of those flip quick reference anatomy books. And in fact, my daughter, this is her first year as a freshman in college, and I was like, take this book with you. she's and because she's got anatomy, and I was like, take
Sure.
this with you, this will work.
That'll work.
So but yeah, so anyways, and now what's is funny, I got to share, is my daughter is totally a closet medium,
Oh,
so
good.
she knows that she can do it, but it
Yeah.
freaks her out. And
Yeah.
so yeah, and when they had their first lab with the body,
Mm-hmm.
and I said, "Oh my God!" I said, and there was there was some stuff that happened, and I said, "Oh my God, you're totally not. Are you going to pass this class as far as you're just going to be chatting with the cadavers?" And
Mm-hmm.
it was like, "So how's it going?" She doesn't like that. Would you be nicer to her? It's like,
Sure.
or
Sure.
different things. So, but anyways, I got off subject, but I guess what I'm sharing is that, um, there are a lot of different things, but so when I connect, the qualities that I look for, somebody very ethical,
Mm-hmm.
somebody that energetically, as an empath, I'm connecting, I feel their connection. And then of course you're looking for, usually if you know them, know, like, and trust them, that their accuracy, and that, you're well, it's always curious, who is the doctor's doctor, right? And
Sure.
that's
Sure.
why I always, but you never know if
Wonderful.
they're going to show up in spirit or
You never
physical
know.
realm. So
You never
be
know.
open. That's the biggest
All
thing.
right. Perfect. So, what advice would you give someone who's just entering this spiritual work?
Run. No, just kidding. I'm joking. No, I'm kidding. I like to kid a little bit. But so what I would share is, if you're doing spiritual development, or if you're doing mediumship, or if you're doing Reiki, or if you're doing, and I'm not a practitioner myself of Reiki, but
Mhm.
if you're doing something, then to continue doing it.
Mhm.
I had a friend one time, they were like, Dean, do you know how musicians get better? And I was like, and they were like, they play the song one more time. They play it over and over. That's how
Sure.
drummers know how to play the drums so well, or
Yeah.
guitarists. They play until their fingers bleed.
Yeah.
So the thing with mediumship is they continue giving more readings, or the
Mhm.
same with practitioners of healing.
Sure.
They work with more and more
Yeah.
clients, and they work on developing how it works for them. And
Sure.
your abilities will most certainly change and metamorphosize with your
Mhm.
abilities as you increase in energy.
Yeah.
And so things have a way of shifting. It's like, ooh, I knew when I first started it was like this. Now I don't have to
Yeah.
work as hard to do this. It's easier, but also I found that I can do this. And so
Yeah.
we unlock different parts of, almost kind of like a video game for some people. And it's like, I didn't know we could do this. I unlocked a new
Yeah.
level,
Yeah. Yeah,
So
you want to cultivate that relationship with the energy. And this is, as in
right.
Reiki and in mediumship as well. And the more you use it, you exercise that
I
muscle.
love it.
So that's where
Yes.
you have the similarity, even though,
Right.
Reiki, universal energy, but you're working with energy from the other side,
Right.
so.
Yes. Yes. Well, and absolutely. And I love the aspect that, you brought up muscle, right? And so
Yes,
I love the aspect of, intuition is just like that, a muscle. And if
the
I
muscle.
always say
Yeah.
is, you wouldn't go to one Pilates class and then quit, or
Mm-hmm.
one yoga class, because you're just going to be sore as hell the next day. I've done that
Sure.
before, and it doesn't do you any good. It
Yeah.
gives you maybe a little experience, but what you need to do is go again, and you
Yeah.
do it
And then have
again.
variety
And
too. Yeah. Do the
yes,
yoga,
and
do the
it does,
walking, do the
yeah,
cardio.
yep,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And then it
And
helps
so,
out.
but continue until, and so that's what I would share is,
Oh, perfect.
if you're doing something and you want it to get stronger,
Mhm.
continue doing it, continue practicing your intuition every day,
Wonderful.
integrate it into your everyday life. The same
Yeah.
with if you're doing Reiki, or if you're doing mediumship, or
Yeah.
whatever it is, or play around with it. Maybe
Yeah.
you get into mediumship and Reiki. Maybe you
Oh, yeah.
can marry the two. We've had people talking about spontaneous healings, where
Sure.
they're guided to work with somebody, and I've had that experience myself. So
Oh, yeah.
things that you just go,
Yeah.
you're
I have.
just
Yeah.
gobstruck, it's just like, wow, so
So, all right. Well, what books do you recommend?
Oh man. So many. One that really, really helped me is a book by John Edwards called The Infinite Quest.
Mm,
And what I love about the book, that was the first book that was ever recommended to me. And what I love about the book is John writes, and in a way that is very no nonsense. And he asks you throughout the book, like, why the hell do you want to be a medium? And I kept on
yeah.
throwing her literally across the room going, I don't want to be a medium. Remember
Yeah.
the psychic lady, she said, read his book, it's good. And I kept on throwing it. And I was like, I don't want to be a damn medium. Like, and so, but I kept on picking up, and then but the thing is, it keeps on being that mirror for you.
Yeah.
So that's what I find is good. And it teaches you about boundaries.
Good.
Anything by John Edwards, James Van Praagh is great. There are so many now. I haven't, I need to get back to reading an actual
Sure.
book, but, there's so many out there. And another one too, I'll give a shout out to my mentor, Troy Parkinson. He wrote a book as well, and about his experience and becoming
Yeah.
a medium, and about development and everything else. So there's some,
Yeah.
and when
Very good.
I write one, then I'll recommend that as well.
Sure, that's what I was just going to say. I said, and to be announced your book.
Yeah, well,
So-
it's been one of those love-hate relationships,
Yep,
and it's
you
been
just
in
got to
the
move
work
forward.
yeah, I
Absolutely.
know. Yep. So, but
So
trust in
what
the process.
services do you offer, and where can we find you?
Yeah. So I do, of course, I do mediumship. I do classes and spiritual development. I also provide what I call intuitive and business, I guess, consulting work. So basically blending all of my abilities into working with those that are in real estate and in business. And in the aspect of saying, Dean, boy, real estate, that's so weird, because I'm also a dowser. So that's another
Sure.
ability that I have. So locating and shifting energies, not only within homes, but in businesses and land and everything else, finding lost objects. But if you go to my website at themilitarymedium.com, and you just book, appointment or whatever, I have a whole list of services that you can pick and choose from. And by the way, it's through the end of the week, but I'm doing a fall equinox sale. So I got a lot of select services on sale through the end of the month. And so, yeah.
All right, wonderful. So that ends the first part of our journey, and I'm going to guide you through the second part, which is 3 social media questions. So here we go.
Sure, we go.
Number 1, do you use any techniques to help you connect to the other side?
Sure. I think now it is more about I'll call it integrated meditation. In the beginning, I used to use more of a visualization, like bringing in colors and angels and everything. And it was very selective, very guided, right? And what I realized, it was taking up too much time. And what I realized, I was like, why can't I just integrate that into my everyday life and already have that preloaded, so to speak, of this protection and everything? So, but some days when I'm more stressed, because I am the spirit having a human experience, days that I'm carrying a little bit heavier energy, I will meditate. Some of you see the guitar in the back. I'll play something that raises my energy, because I know that I need to be at that higher level or plane of existence and of energy for my clients, or doing the work that I do, to maintain that, to connect with spirit. So I use a very, tuning forks. I've used essential oil spray, different things, blends that I like. Whether it's Palo Santos wood. And then usually in my office down here where I am, I also like to diffuse different oils, but if you like to burn like sage or different things, but keeping your environment, this is huge, keeping your environment high vibrational and very cleansed of other people and even your stuff. The baggage, keep it free of baggage, because if you're there for work, how can you deal with being your best self, if you're worried about, you know, do the dogs need to go to the bathroom?
Yeah.
Do the kids need their baths? And if your spouse, your significant other, or somebody else has it, or if you can take care of it in a way that, if you can drop the baggage at the door, come in, do your work, come back out. And so that's kind of what I have, the boundaries that I've set. And my wife and I both do work from home. She also does energy work.
Mm-hmm.
And so we learn to work together. So there's days that when she has appointments and different things, then I'm covering down. And guess what? Because I'm not always Dean the medium, right? We talked about labels before.
Sure.
I got to be Dean the dad, or I got to be take out the damn trash, right? So or cut the grass. So it's like there's life, and you got to be able to cover down on that stuff. So you got to find the balance, and dare I say, the happy medium.
Yeah, the happy medium.
The happy medium with everything. So here's what I would share. Find what works for you. I hate saying do this.
Yeah.
Because if I give somebody XYZ and they're like, oh my God, I got to do it because Dean said it.
Mm-hmm.
And it probably won't work for them because they're, oh my God, I hate it. And it's like, then why are you doing it? It's just a way. It's not the way. It's like, try it. If you like it, great, go do it. But find different ways, maybe different blends of different things. I took a 6-month meditation course to learn that I hate traditional meditation. And I was like, and there was significant amount of money and time, but I learned that I don't need to sit cross-legged in a lotus position to connect to the other side. I can do it while I'm painting a wall. I can do it. I can do it moving. I can do it running.
Okay.
So
wonderful.
Find your way.
All right. Number 2, this was a big one with our listeners. Do you experience more skepticism within the military with the work that you do?
Good question. What's surprising is it doesn't matter what you do for a living. So military could be digging ditches. I've talked about this before. You would think, and I had that perception when I was first coming out of the metaphysical closet, that I'm like, oh my God, they're totally, and I had gained the respect of a lot of officers and senior non-commissioned officers within the Army. And here I was, a senior non-commissioned officer myself at the time of retirement. And so I didn't want to be that guy. But eventually I did come out, and I was like, you know what are they going to do? Bend my dog tags, make me retire? And because I was like, this is who I am. And when people kept on asking me what I was going to do, I was very vague in the beginning. Yeah. It was this is what I'm doing. So yes and no. There's a blend of people that I experienced people that were like, oh my God, that is so cool. And one soldier that that was in my unit, I found out that, she was a Reiki master. She never said anything. Oh my God. I knew it, Dean, that there's something. And then, but there's other people like, I'll pray for you, or other people that just walked away and they're like, whatever. He's off the deep end, right? And so it's a blend. And I found that not only in the military community, but in the civilian community. People are people. Sure. It doesn't matter if you're wearing a uniform or if you're wearing it doesn't matter what you're wearing. It's more of a mindset. And just because people feel that, if they're serving in the military, doesn't mean that they're all closed-minded.
Very good. Number 3, in all your experiences, what is the one thing that those on the other side would want us to know? Oh,
first and foremost, without a doubt, that you are loved and you are not alone. We are wrong about so many things when we have these perceptions of when the soul leaves this physical plane of existence and transitions to the spirit realm, right? And or the way that somebody passes, oh my God, they're in hell or whatever. And we're so far off the mark. And I always say this, even as a medium, I do the best in my puny little head can understand all this beauty and there's complexities and everything, and I try to put it into our words the best but I always say, you know what, we do our best, but when we get to
Sure.
the other side, we're going to go, well, shit, I had it wrong, because it's going to be so
Very
much
good.
more beautiful. It's going to
Sure.
be, and I know that already. But that's, if I could say two things, and again, is that you are tremendously, without a doubt, 110% loved, whether nobody has ever said it to you before, or you were told since you were a newborn to the time you're passing that, or that you were loved, and that you're never alone. They're always with you. You never walk a day. There's never a moment that, even if you feel utterly alone, know that you're
Sure.
not.
Wonderful.
And, and that they're proud of you. They're supporting you. But
Thank
sometimes we
you.
just need validation in life, right?
Sure. Well, thank you for
On
that.
all levels. Absolutely.
So that ends our journey here. And before I wrap up, is there anything else that you wanted to add or share with our listeners before we end our journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I like to just say, one of the biggest things is we can be so many things in this world. Just be kind, and and to be cognizant of your energy. You're responsible for your energy, and to take ownership of that, whether right, wrong, good or bad. And so just be kind with it. Understand that there are people struggling out there. They need our help rather than our ridicule or judgment.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, thank you, Dean, the
Thank you.
military medium. Thank you for being you. Thank you for your
Oh, thank you.
service. Thank you, what you're doing for the world, for the collective. So thank you so much. And thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule to join me on this journey.
Absolutely. Tracy, thank you so much for having me.
Wonderful. All right, my wonderful listeners, if you'd like your question featured on Ready Set Reiki, reach out to www.readysetreiki.com. Also, check out Feather Sister, that offers online Reiki classes, yoga classes, and Reiki trainings, and Reiki and yoga trainings as well. So I'm Tracy Seawright, and this has been Ready Set Reiki.